face trade just yet.
Sit down and strap in for the ultimate SuperCoach podcast. It's time to win your leagues and dominate your mates.
This is the Dual Position Podcast, hosted by Whisperer and SCAdrianasaurus.
New year, new co-host, new intro. Welcome to the Dual Position Podcast, the very first episode of 2023. We've just ticked over to the new year, but you know, we're 57 days away, I think, from Teamless Tuesday, so the countdown is definitely on. As always, I am the SCWhisperer. Coached last year at the Ramsey Resurgence. Don't know if we have a name this year. SuperCoach ranked last year 140th, joined by the great Adrian Delaney, aka SCAdrianasaurus. Mate, how are we?
Mate, I'm super. I was saying off air there that I went large over New Year's. You did float recording yesterday, and I was in no shape to do that. But I'm here today. I'm feeling refreshed, and I'm keen as mustard. I haven't really had a big look at the NRL. I know the team picker's open, so I'm going in probably a little fresher than you are, because you're not as much of a BBL nut like I am, and I'm doing content on the BBL. But look, I'm pumped, and I've been doing a bit of research in the last day. I'm keen to talk SuperCoach.
Yes, I am very much a BBL casual. It generally gets to 10 minutes before kickoff, 10 minutes before lockout, where I will message you and be like, "Hey, look, who are we buying this week?" And that's basically the extent of my BBL knowledge. But yeah, SuperCoach NRL, we've really ramped it up there. First things first, mate. Who is Ado? Who is SCAdrianasaurus? For a lot of people know who you are, but I guess for the few that don't, what is your SuperCoach history? What sort of stuff do you make, and how did you sort of finish up last year?
Yeah, look, I'm a big SuperCoach nuffy. When it comes to NRL and BBL, I'm probably more into NRL because I'm an NRL lover, a big Canberra Raiders fan.
Up the milk.
Look, in the early days, I sort of went on as a guest, sort of part of the panel of the SuperCoach experience. I finished up sort of doing that, and I was always there, like with the NRL SuperCoach Rob Sutherland and Sangster, just hanging shit on him, mucking around, a bit of
all do.
Yeah, a bit of banter and stuff, and I used to get under their skin a little bit, and they'd read me out on the show and stuff. And look, I had a few people say you should do a podcast, and you do well at SuperCoach. You're pretty entertaining. So I sort of just started it out. I was a little bit wobbly and messy at the start because obviously I was drinking beers and going in and recording drunk and stuff. So it was a messy old start, but we got ourselves into a format, I think, that worked for us. And the podcast has done well. I've got lots of people giving great feedback and getting lots of listens and stuff. I go across all of the socials, Facebooks, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm up on a lot of different Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud. People can find me in all sorts of places. And look, I give it raw and honest. I think there's players like yourself that dive into numbers and stuff like that. And of course, I concentrate on numbers, but I get a feel for players. I kind of, I've managed to get onto some players who were a little bit pottish, and I just go with the feel if I like them. Doesn't always pay off, but I'm a player who plays a bit more by feel. Look, I've always done pretty well in SuperCoach. Last year was actually my best finish ever in SuperCoach. I finished in, where were we? I finished in 241, which is a nice finish for overall. I play a lot of cashies. I'm a head-to-head player, so hopefully this year we can give some head-to-head advice as well.
Yeah.
Because I probably consider myself to be an expert head-to-head player. I win head-to-heads, and I always come, top couple and take out, well, in my case, cashies by winning head-to-heads. But last year I had a good crack at overall, and I think I had a good finish. So, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's a really big appeal as well. Like, you're a big personality, I'm a big personality. We both have, big says on what we want, and we will disagree with each other throughout the season. But I think I would like to say I'm a expert, in quotation marks, overall player. You specialize in more head-to-head. They do go hand in hand in some sense. Like, for example, like I said, I finished 140th last year, won a few head-to-heads, but didn't really focus on it. And there is a bit of a different strategy as well. So having both those perspectives, I think will be fantastic. Now, You mentioned you came 240th last year. What were some things that worked for you? What were some things that didn't work for you? Because last year was the first year, we had the boosts, and that they were a big contentious point. I know that I came into the season with a plan with the boosts. That plan went out the window. But what worked for you last year, you felt?
Well, the boost probably didn't work for me because I probably just burnt them way too quickly. I was trying to get myself back on level terms with some of the people who started hotter than me, and I burnt them. And I every year I always regret that I didn't save trades, and last year I used my boost too early. I know that even your chat was like, who needs boosts? And I kind of had that attitude. I was a bit blasé about them. I was like, well, they're extras here, and I'm just going to burn them. What did I do well last year? I think I got onto, like, if you can go a week earlier than everyone else on a player, like I got Manu early and held him for the rest of the year. I got onto Harry Grant right from season one and right from round one, and Munster, even though they were off for round one. I just was like, well, I'm not compromising on that. They're the guys I want. And I just sat him for week one, and it just worked out really well for me, just picking the actual team that I wanted and getting on these players maybe a week before everybody else got on, because you get the score. One of the things I did wrong was I knew I wanted to go Cleary, and I went 1 week too long, because remember he came in and he got that big, enormous 100 or whatever. And some other people I talked to in SuperCoach had gone a week early on him, and it had really paid off for him.
Yeah, I was overall, I was one of those ones that went early. And
lucky bastard.
You're right. You're right. Like, and I think rectifying your mistakes as well, not having too big of an ego. Like, if you get it wrong, cool. Like, that's just, for example, myself. I started with Brad Schneider, like a lot of people, and I was very anti Nico Hines just in the preseason. And Brad Schneider would have been a fantastic cash cow, but we cut him pretty quickly and brought in Nico just because it looked fantastic. So you can have these bold stances on players. That's totally okay. But if it turns out to be wrong, then I think you've got to jump on them when they present themselves.
Yep, you can't be too stubborn and keep slipping behind. Very early you go, this is the guy this year. Like Tuppeny last year. Yeah. There was a time where we knew that Tuppeny was the guy, and I never brought him into my team at all.
I love that. I love that guy. I bought him, I think, in round 13 just because I needed some more buy numbers. Like, I had no plans on holding him long term, and then he became very, very good. So jumping on players a week early, as you said, is fantastic. 2023. Now, for you guys watching on YouTube, you can see the little plug in the top left-hand corner. This year, I'm going to be running, a premium Discord server where it's basically 24/7 access to me. I'm very, very fortunate with the large community that I've managed to build. I just don't have enough time in the day to look at everyone's teams that they send me. I'm sorry. The Discord's going to have access to me, a wide range of resources. There's some fantastic spreadsheets in there, some absolutely world-class buy planning, team planning, stuff like that, and a host of other things. Feel free to reach out to me on all my socials. It's $20 one-off payment. Just to get premium access to that. When it comes to preseason plans, Ado will be, my new right-hand man. We're going to be doing 2 podcasts a week. They'll be going out on Tuesdays and Fridays. I think in the really early parts of the season, we're going to be doing more team reviews, more team previews, and then as the season gets closer, we will be looking at, specific players and going further, deeper dives into the positions. Like I said, that'll be 2 episodes a week. During the season, it'll be 1 live stream on a Tuesday with myself and Ado. On Sundays, Ado will be doing his own thing on his own channel. He'll be doing a wrap-up. As for myself, I'm not too sure. I've discussed a few things with some other potential creators in the space about what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do a Sunday pod. Might not. There's some people that do fantastic works with wrap-ups and stuff, and Ado is one of them, so check those out. What we're going to be discussing today, Ado, is our initial thoughts and both our teams. We're going to be doing a team reveal. Now, we'll be going through player by player. A few players we have the same, so, we might brush over them quickly or spend more time on certain players. Mm-hmm. As more information comes out, our teams will shape up, but this is sort of how, Ado and I are both looking. So I reckon we get straight into it with my team just because it's loaded up first. So for anyone watching on YouTube, you can see it here on screen. Anyone that's listening through audio, Ado and I will do our best to explain. So up top, he started last year like a house on fire. I think he averaged 90 odd in the first month. We're paying 13 grand for him, but with no real threat for minutes. Not that he ever had a threat, but with Brandon Smith walking out the door, I don't really see anyone competing with the Queensland number 9. That is Harry Grant. Is there anything more to say?
No. I mean, Brandon Smith, the cheese is gone, from their team. Not that he did steal too many minutes from him last year, but I think that was in the setup for this year. I think they were probably getting his legs ready for big minutes, Harry Grant. And, I mean, I reckon what's going to be the jump down from him points? I reckon it could be like 20-plus points. And I think you lock him in and you just have no stress for the rest of the year. He costs a lot, but he's clearly the best player he can pick at that position.
Yeah, Cook was probably the next player. I think there was a 2-point drop off in average, but Cook is now getting on the wrong side of 30. Grant is just getting better. It's tough. Like in my hooker pairings, like we'll get to my number 2. As much as I do love Harry Grant, if another option does become viable, say a Mitch Kenny or a Sonny Luke or Josh Hodgson starts to look really good in the trials, then Grant will probably be the first one to go just because of the money that can be saved. But right now, it's I'm looking at it like, spend the money now. I'm probably not going to make money on him, but I'll probably never have to trade him out, barring injury. And that's, the setup that I've gone with there. Yeah,
it feels nice locking up. I mean, it's one of those positions that does stress you out, I think, if you try to go double cheapy type thing. So, whatever you see as a premium, I think it's kind of a good fit to have one of them in there.
See, last year we had Chris Randall, who, was locked in for 80 minutes, so it was fine. But someone like a Mitch Kenny or a Sonny Luke, there is that threat of split minutes there. So there isn't no standout, like, absolute lock hooker cheapie that's locked in for 60-plus minutes. So, yeah, I've found the money to go Grant. I've also found the money to go Brandon Smith as my backup hooker. This is a guy that I don't think will ever leave my preseason side. It sucks that he did lose that 2RF duel because it would have been so nice to have. But, Sam Verrills has gone to the Titans. Connor Watson, maybe he could play 10, 15 minutes if he needed to. But I think Cheese is looking at 65-plus and at 417K in this Roosters side. He's going to have a whole off-season to train. I think Brandon Smith has been pretty open about his weight, and depending on what he likes to play and what he's expected to play will depend on his weight. I think he's basically known since September he's going to play hooker, so he's had that whole off-season to really prepare for that. Got a little bit of air in the lungs through the Rugby League World Cup. And, yeah, I mean, the Roosters side fully fit are just juggernauts.
Yeah, I like it. Look, Watson could spell him for minutes, but I just really like the fit. I reckon all cheeses. I mean, look, Bellamy is a great coach, but I really like the thought of Robbo shaping Brandon Smith into a new dimension of player, and I think he's just good enough value to take a punt on this year as your second hooker. He kind of feels like he could be a premium hooker. He feels like he could be snapping on the heels of Harry Grant next year in that team. Well,
we saw exactly what he did when Harry Grant was injured. What was it? 2 years ago, he was averaging 70-plus, and he was just a try-scoring machine. So, giving him that whole preseason, I think, is going to be very, very beneficial for us super coaches. Yep. In the front row, I'm all aboard the Daniel Saifidi bandwagon. I've been hyping him up since the preseason picker came out. I genuinely think he could be a top 5 front row forward. No David Clemmer, no Mitch Barnett. Adam Elliott does come in, but he's going to be the leader of this pack. Battled with a lot of injuries last year. 422K for a guy who, I would not be surprised to see average 63, 64 points a game.
Yep, I like him. He, as opposed to a lot of the other people in that price point, he is a try-scoring front rower, which is kind of why you like the look of him. Origin forward, I like it. I think he's unders this year, played with a bit of injury last year. I like it.
Yeah. The next man I haven't really looked at until about 8:30 last night when I realised he was only 447K. I was sitting there thinking, who plays prop for the Bulldogs because Paul Vaughan's off to the Super League? Obviously, Max King will fill in one of the spots. You'd think Tavita Pangai Jr. plays 13. And I was like, oh, crap, Luke Thompson. He didn't play much last year because he was battling a lot of injury. And, we've seen when the Bulldogs were very, very dire, this would have been 2 years ago, he was playing 60, 65 minutes a game in the front row. And, Raymond Faitala-Mariner will be coming back with a little bit of, underdoneness because of his foot. Is he going to start in the back row? Will it be TPJ? Like, there's there's not a whole lot there for the Bulldogs middle. So I think Luke Thompson, he does have that handy duel as well. A guy that I didn't look at too hard until about last night when I was like, oh, we can restructure this team to get him.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. I mean, look, it's interesting. What's his price?
$447, and he's dual.
Yeah, I mean, look, people are going Welch. You know, he's coming back off an Achilles, and I reckon that's a really. I think I have a lot more confidence that he'll probably be fit, healthy, and up for good minutes. Probably. I mean, I think Welsh, if he's healthy, will probably get decent minutes in that pack as well. But I don't mind that.
I just think Thompson could be, maybe 1 or 2 points less than Tohu, and they're both dual, and Tohu's 100k more. So yeah, I don't really hate that. On the bench, we kind of brush over it. There's not a whole lot showing up so far. But at the moment, I've got Davey Moali. Hopefully, he can pick up 20, 30 minutes off the bench. Mark Nichols leaving, Burgess not getting any younger, and Franklin Pella. SuperCoach stud of the preseason. We all love him every year. He's moved to the Dogs. Hopefully some minutes open up for him, but there's a couple of other options that are in your side that can slot in if need be.
Yep. I mean, he's probably not going to be on for heaps of minutes, but he's bargain, isn't he? 188,000, yeah. I think. So, most of us always go double. We go cheap on the bench, don't we?
Yeah, I think we have brushed over Davey Moali a little bit there, but he should be locked in for 25 minutes, 30 minutes-ish. If he can pump out 35 points, cool.
He'll start going up.
Yeah, sweet. In the back row, it's a lot of money, 600k. But Fafita was so bad last year, and he still averaged ridiculous amounts of points. He does get Kieran Foran now. I think we're all buying into this idea of Kieran Foran. I don't want to talk about everyone that's in your team, so we'll leave Fafita because I know he does feature in your team, and we can touch on him there. But his Titans counterpart, the reports now that Isaac Liu has signed for the Warriors, which is leaving, a few minutes up for grabs. There's a lot to like about Aaron Clark in the stint that he showed us playing through the middle last year.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a few teams that have been sort of sent through to me. I mean, look, he looked really good in the 13. It's just, it feels to me like he's like, he plugs a gap. And if they ever get an injury to a hooker, and he's dog shit in the hooker for SuperCoach purposes. So I just worry about whether they're going to go and do that to him. Like whether he's just the Band-Aid for a lot of problems that they might get in the, if they get a hooker problem or whatever. So, but look, he was good.
I do agree with that. I do think, Sam Verrills will obviously walk in to start 9. But then you're going to have guys like Aaron Booth and Tanner Boyd. I expect Tanner Boyd to play 14. So he can be that Band-Aid guy. I just think the Titans looked really, really good in attack when Tino moved. Like, I love Tino. I've never rated him at 13. I've always thought he could be one of the best front row forwards if he just played a prop, because he's not, that modern-day 13. But I think, Aaron Clark could be. And, come trials, if it looks like someone like Eli Katoa, who we'll touch on later, if he looks to be a viable option in Melbourne, if he's starting in the trials, then, it's an easy downgrade there. Luke Garner is another one that a lot of teams are having, and I'm happy for us to discuss him in time. But on the bench, there's only really 2 names here that I'd love to discuss. Ray Stone, look, if he gets to 13 at the Dolphins, 215k, fantastic hooker duel. But there is a lot of cheapies in the back row. One of them is Jermaine Hopgood. Now, coming from the Penrith Panthers, all reports are that Hopgood probably takes the 13 jersey. And at 261k, he probably will be one of the most owned players, I think, once the full game is released and we get access to all those stats.
Yeah, I mean, all the chat is looking good for him to get a starting role in that team, and the price is just too juicy. I mean, you don't want to say words like must have, but he, on the cheapie front, starting in that Eels pack in the 13, he's looking juicy as, I think, at that price.
You don't want to use the term must have, but I will with Josh Schuster. 210k, probably going to play 6. I'm tasty.
Let's say. Training the house down.
Get him in straight away. But yeah, look, I think Schuster will be probably the most owned player once like the full version is released. 210k, I think, in games that he started in the halves last year, the year before, he averaged like 70. I don't think we're going to get that high, but, a big dynamic ball runner. I'm happy to get his body in the way. We'll break a few tackles, similar to someone like a Munster at a very cheaper price. But yeah, available at 2RF as well. I think that's going to be very, very handy to swap some things around. I've currently got him in my 2RF, but he could definitely make his way down to 5/8 if need be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested to see who your backup 5/8 then is, because I've got him in my 5/8 in the second row, so it'll be interesting.
Well, the YouTube viewers can see because we just scrolled down. But at halfback, same as hooker. I don't want to stuff around here. I doubted the man last year. I'm not going to doubt him this year. Sharks have a pretty golden draw. They do face 3 top 8 opponents in the first month, but after that, it's pretty clear sailing for the Sharks. I don't see him playing Origin. I think there's some better 14 options for New South Wales. He could be an 18th man, which kind of sucks, but Nicho Hynes, 788k, an absolute star last year. And I've partnered him with Nathan Cleary. We've gone big. Both the premium halves, just straight in, straight there.
One sexy set of halves you got there. I mean, Nicho Hynes worth more than Cleary. He had some sort of year last year, but that's a lot of the salary cap, obviously into those halves, but you feel like you're not going to have to worry about those all year long, really, and you're probably never going to trade them out.
I was talking to Nathan, your co-host on the BBL podcast. I think I worked out that in my 1, 7, and 9, so like my halfback, hooker, and fullbacks, I think I've spent something like 38% of the salary cap.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's a viable position, like a viable strategy, just like loading up on those star options rather than spreading the cash?
Yeah, well, I mean, I said last year I wanted Munster and I wanted Grant. I knew they weren't going to be playing in round 1, but I didn't like. I thought Cook was going to have a bad year last year. Now I was wrong on that. He was the only other option that I was considering, so I didn't bother with it. I was like, I'm putting him in and I'll get him for round 2.
I started with Marnie. That was
not
Marnie.
Good. So people just went a little bit rogue because Harry Grant was unavailable for the first round, and I just feel like there are positions each year that open up as where you can save money. And I mean, if you're not going to go Hynes and Cleary, you're going down to someone who's probably going to average 30 or 40 points less. So there's some positions where I think you got to spend, and I think other positions, well, this looks like center wing is going to do a good job this year. We're adding in another team. So there's going to be some cheapies in the center wing like we are used to in prior years. And I think places like the front row has got probably less points on offer. It's not as a dynamic a position now. So there's some middies and cheapies up there that could work for you as well. So if it allows you to do it, do it.
Yeah, like I'm just looking now, like in the top 20 halfbacks from last year, Hynes is 1, Cleary's 2, maybe Moses at 3 alike, but apart from Sam Walker at 9, I don't like anyone else in the top 20. And that's the thing, like not much value is presenting itself. Last year, Brad Schneider presented himself because of Jamal Fogarty's injury. And I think that was if you were anti-Nicho Hynes like myself, I think that was a no-brainer to pick him up at bottom dollar. But there isn't a whole lot that's really presenting himself. I know that people are jumping on Katoa from the Dolphins, but I don't think Sean O'Sullivan or Anthony Milford is sitting the pine for an unproven rookie when you Wayne Bennett already, like with the pressure turned up because of how poor the roster is.
Yeah, and I mean, look, he loves Milford. I think Sean O'Sullivan is the 7, so I just don't think that I don't think Bennett's going to give Katoa the run ahead of Milford, at least to start the season. So, I mean, if people are putting him in there because he's a bottom price cheapie and you think he's going to play at some point in the year, it's just so speculative. And originally, when you and I sent each other through teams, we had him in there, but it was just pie in the sky. It wasn't going to be a thing that we were going to actually see, I think, for early rounds. So, look, he may be at some stage, but it's definitely not going to be there to start.
Yeah, look, we'll touch on strategies with the buy and stuff and team at the end. We've got a couple of questions to go through, but I'm really not seeing any appeal of having nuffs. I think we want to have as much depth as possible. And, teams are going to have the buy this week, so like each week. So it's going to be easier to loop. Like, you're not going to have enough to loop. At 5/8, I've gone Matt Burton. 519k, throw him in with Adam Dewey. Even Cody Walker is at a very similar price. You can jump on Tom Dearden for 534k with the Cowboys gun draw. I just think with the Bulldogs on the up, Burton putting up points in a poor side last year, goal kicking. Hopefully he gets kick out on his outside. I see a lot of upside at 519k. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a similar meteoric rise in SuperCoach value as to what Dylan Brown had last year. 17 to 20 points jump in average.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the ones that we'll see who I've got, but I mean, I was contemplating him because I really think this is a Dogs team that's recruited well. This is a year for them. You know, he's got the pressure off having someone like Marnie there and having a gun, you know, back rower like Kickow there as well. I think he'll really feed off that. He's a good player, Burton, to use those kind of players. He's a really good goal kicker. I think there'll be more goals for him this year as well. So I think he's one of the ones that are up there as a choice, I think, for teams this year. In a 5'8" position that, let's be honest, Munster, and then you can sort of take a bit of a punt, can't you?
Yeah, like I said, like if we quickly run over the top 10, it's Munster, Brown, Brimson, Dewey, Dearden, Walker, Burton, Luai, Mam, and Whiten. Munster, Brown, yes. Brimson, I don't know where his position is. He could find himself at centre. Adam Dewey could find himself at centre from all reports of training. Tom Dearden, I like because of the draw. Cody Walker, no, just because the Souths have a pretty horrible month to start, and you know we know how volatile he is. Latrell's taking a lot of points out of Cody Walker. Jerome Luai, no, and Ezra Mam and Jack Whiten also no. So there isn't a whole lot there. So yeah, I think if you're not going to spend the money on Munster, then Burton probably could be your next best bet.
Yeah. It doesn't feel too puntish to me. I really feel like he will, you know, he might have some down games because we did see that last year. He can have a low one in him. He's more of but Cody's always been a yo-yo as well. You get these low ones and then you get enormous high ones. So Munsters and Brown are like the consistent scoring ones, you know, and you can take a punt, I think, on Burton this year with an improving Bulldogs outfit.
Yeah, fantastic. You wanted to know who my backup 5'8" was because I had Schuster up there. With the reports that Talatau Money wants to punch on with his teammates, could open up a spot for Jaden Sullivan at 278k, also available at a hooker. I don't expect the world from him, but, you know, 270k starting in a Dragon side who I don't have a lot of positives to say, but it's, I mean, apart from Schuster, I'm not really seeing a viable backup 5'8" option.
Yeah, Amon and his little alleged hammer thing. He's not going to be back for a long time, is he?
No.
I mean, it's got to be Sullivan, hasn't it?
I think so. So that's sort of led me there. Like I wasn't sure 270k at the 2RF by moving Schuster down, or 270k at 5'8". I think potentially more upside. If I'm not going to be playing Sullivan, I'm happy for him to score 15 points. 2 weeks in a row and then have an 80-point performance. If I'm not going to be playing him, I'm happy to have that rather than just a 35-point plotter in someone like an Ethan Bullimore from last year, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it because I can't see any other way that they're going to go other than him. Look, I'm tipping them for the spoon.
As am I. When we get to previews, it will be not a very positive one when we do the Dragons, unfortunately. Hey, I'll let you. I know that you're, all aboard the Toto train, so you can see him as my first pick centre wing. Look, we both have him. So I'll give you the floor to sort of give us the rundown on Toto.
Yeah, look, Toto is an absolute bargain for Toto, isn't he? 545,000. We do like to start the year, if possible, with a gun or semi-gun.
Yeah. I had Daniel Tupou from last year, similar mold, similar price bracket, and that went pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean, look, some people took a Val and it worked out sensationally well for them. I famously thought he was getting given extra points, the old Val, last year, but he was one of those ones that people could get on at a reasonable price. Look, Toto spent, I reckon, how many games? 18 rounds last year, injured, badly injured.
He picked up something in round 2, and I don't think I don't think he fully got himself right. Yeah.
And maybe in the last few rounds of the year, I think he started to look a little healthier and he started to get back to his running, tackle breaking best. I really think that he is, he's an absolute bargain for the quality that he is. And I reckon he's going to be a top 4 centre wing this year. I think as long as he's healthy, Brian Toto is a tackle breaking, plenty of runs winger. And look, he's on the wrong side now.
No, but that's what everyone says. In saying that, though, no Viliami kick out. Do you think they changed the way they attack? Do you think there might be a second-year slump for someone like a Tago and a May? And do you think they end up focusing a lot of their attack down that right-hand side with no kick out?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, because you've got Crichton out there too, so,
Yeah.
He's on that side, isn't he? So, look, I just think it doesn't feel as much of a punt because he's not 700,000, he's 500,000. And I really think that he was probably 15 points shy of what he's capable of because of his injuries last year. So I expect a resurgence for him this year.
Worst case scenario with Brian Toto, we don't lose money. I think this is his floor. I think we're buying him at his floor, and I don't think it can get any worse than 554K or whatever he is.
Yep.
Now, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow is. Do we think he gets the fullback gig at the Dolphins, or do we think it goes to someone like a Jermaine Asako? Like, what happens here?
Well, I think it's got to be the hammer, hasn't it? Like, Jermaine. I mean, Jermaine is
a Bennett favourite.
He's barely first grade. I mean, seriously, why did you buy the hammer to play him at center?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I agree.
200.
Yeah, I mean, look, Asako's a good goal kicker, and I think he's been coasting on that for a long, long time. I really think Hammer is the fullback. He's more dynamic. He's younger. He's got that speed, which is unrivaled in the game. Really for talents. I think he's got to be the fullback for them.
Yeah, also 288K. So if he does get the fullback position, it's hard to pass him up. A player that I guess is close to your heart. I don't think there's any ill will to his departure from the Raiders. That is Chance Nickel Klukstar, 285K. Basically all but confirmed to play 1 for the Warriors, with Tamade Martin playing 6.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. Like, we saw back in 2019, I think he was available at nearly basement price. A little bit more expensive now, but he was phenomenal at full flight for the Raiders. Battled with some injuries last year, and I think they just preferred Xavier Savage, so they were trying to mould him to get him there. But full preseason, at a Warriors side who could be exciting, could have flashes of brilliance. I think Klukstar is a hard worker. I think his base is fine, and at 280K, I'm very happy to pick him up.
Yep. If you can pick a fullback in center, I think that there's just more of a ability to score points generally, unless they're like a Johnston who gets 20 tries a year. So Klokstad, he's all but signed on to be the fullback for them, 285,000. Look, he's not really ever been a SuperCoach sort of weapon, but I really think he's going to do and score well enough in the fullback position over there.
The next man, Paul Alamotti, very, very, very highly rated at the Bulldogs. Aaron Schopp has gone to the Titans, so a centre spot opens up. I tip it's going to be Alamotti pairing up with either Braden Burns or young Skelton, so we could potentially get 2 Bulldogs cheapies, but I think Alamotti or Skelton will definitely feature come round 1. Not a whole lot more to say. At 175K, bottom dollar, absolute beast of a kitty. He's huge.
Mm-hmm.
My bench, Tyrell Sloan. Now, close to my heart, Cody Ramsey. It's looking very unlikely he probably plays first grade ever again, battling with, I think it's an immuno disease or something. Like it's not looking good for old Cody. So, unless Moses Mbai steps up in that fullback mould, Tyrell Sloan was the preferred fullback last year and, was dropped because of form. So, you would expect he probably gets first crack, and at 260K, he also is a good loop candidate because the Dragons do have a bye, the first round. Not that I'm looking too much into that. I'm more looking into the prospect of buying a fullback at 260K available in the centres.
Well, Coach is an absolute lunatic, and I think he's going to be the first sacked. It's just like him to put Moses Mbai in fullback.
It wouldn't surprise me if you named Moses Mbai at 6 and Sullivan just was relegated to 14 as well. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and he'll play someone like Telltale Moga at fullback. He's an absolute dead set crazy thing. He's got dementia or something.
The next man on my bench is Hayes Dunster. Now, the reason Hayes is here is because Bailey Simmonson's not going to be ready for quite a while. So what are we shooting out? Hayes Dunster or Sean Russell? We're going to do this again. We did this last year. Are we going down this route again? But at 205K, if you can jag a wing spot for 6-7 weeks, fantastic.
Well, if he gets it, yeah, for sure.
And, Taware, I don't know much about this kid, but he's in everyone's teams. I've not seen much of him, but apparently he's good. I don't really know if he gets a spot, but there's a couple of other options, like you got like Jack Howarth or Skelton, as we've touched on, if he gets a spot. But The centers at the Dolphins is going to be weird. I don't think Brenko Lee is first grade quality. I just don't. I think you and Aitken will get one center spot, and then the other one will be up for debate.
Yeah, I think so. I really think it'll probably be Brenko, to be honest. I think that Wayne likes him. Wasn't that the Origin that Wayne coached, and it was the unlikely win?
It was Edric and Brenko.
Yeah. So, I think that he likes him.
Oh, God.
So, I just think, I haven't got it to RA in mind, but I feel like he is somebody, because Brenko inevitably will have some shit games and cost them games. So he might get blooded, but I just reckon at the start, he's going to probably go with this, these experienced players. And look, Brenko, he's a good passing center. He's got good games in him. So
can he just stay fit? That's the problem. That's the only thing. Fullbacks, I've got Tedesco and Travojevic. We'll touch on them more when we do Ado's team, because I need to leave you some players to touch on.
All right, we can go to me, and I'll go my different players.
100%. At hooker, we've got Grant and Smith, as you've touched on. We've mentioned them, but let's talk Jack Hetherington, because I can see that nicely priced $230K dual to our front row forward is there. There's a vacant edge spot at the Knights. Do you think Heatho takes that one?
Yeah, I just wonder why they signed him. I think they've waved a carrot at him from where he came from. I think they wanted a bit of mongrel in the pack. Look, I'm not 100% sold on this, but I just think if he is the one that jags that role, we know Barnett's gone out of the team. So I reckon he's a chance, and he's a bit of a lunatic. He'll probably get suspended, half the year, but I'm going cheap and nasty in the front row. And I think he might be starting on that edge. And if he does at 230K, I'm willing to take a punt.
Yeah, I'm a big fan if he does start as well. Don't expect the world from him. But yeah, if you're going to go cheap and nasty in the front row, fantastic. You've paired him with Daniel Saifidi, who we both love. Yep. I also love the pick of Sean Keppie, 240K, probably starts for Manly. The only concern is the minutes that he's going to get. All reports are that Marty Tapau is all but gone. He won't be re-signing. And Sean Keppie, look, if he gets 40 minutes, he's a guy that could put up 55 points in 40 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's good value. 240K. I kind of like what I saw from him last year. And I'm hearing that Tapau's gone. And if that's the case, I reckon he starts. And I think there's at least 40 minutes there for him. He's, if Hetherington starts in the second row, I think between the two of them, I'll be able to find someone who I'm willing to start. It's going to get me a safe 50. I'm spreading it out with 250s that look like they're probably going to get at least 40 minutes and a decent role in their teams. And I like the look of Keppie last year. I think he's probably he's leveled up now into a starting front row. Yeah,
I do like Keppie a lot, and he could definitely feature in my side as the preseason progresses. You've also paired these three with Davey Mawali, who we've touched on. You've got Ray Stone, you've got Jermaine Hopgood. You've also got Sean Bloor, who... Sean Bloor, I'm assuming he's a bit of a placeholder for you at the moment. If he can somehow jag an edge and they decide to shuffle some things around and play Bateman at 13 or IPAP at 13.
Look, I probably gave you this, not having much of a look at it because I'm a bit salty about, look at me, I'm here in Canberra Raiders gear, John.
I've made sure everyone listening, when we do the team, because we're going to do we're going to do 3 or 4 teams in one episode. I've definitely made sure to do the Tigers and the Raiders in one episode.
Goodness me. But anyway, so Bloor probably isn't the guy. I'll probably have to adjust that. Look, you've mentioned that Schuster plan, which could be a good one if Sullivan looks good. Is there anyone else in that sort of price point that I like? Look, there's going to be someone that pops in,
With the news of TT Rabadi being stood down, Pia Cora, could come back into consideration. Not by starting, but could be picking up some minutes off the bench, or Xavier Willison. Also, Haas from the Titans. I think he could pick up some minutes as well. I think it's Haas. He could definitely be a rotational piece. So we have a few options. I don't think we're locked into cheapy second rows. But let's touch on David Fafita, Luke Garner, and Eli Katoa, who are your mainstays.
Yeah, look, David Fafita, I think Foran's going to help him this year. Look, I hope he comes to the Raiders as well. There's a bit of talk about that. But look, it's big day for Fafita. Look, we know even when he sucks, he still scores well for SuperCoach because he just goes on these enormous runs. He does like 1 run a game, 3 runs a game, and one of them's amazing. You can plug in one premium second rower, and I think he's probably a good one to take a punt on with Kieran Foran there. He straightens up attacks, throws nice short balls. I really see those two sparking up a good pairing. So I've gone with David Fafita. Luke Garner, I mean, he's going to start in the second round, unless I really think that who's the old mate that came off the bench last year for them? Sorensen. I think Sorensen's going to be bench. I reckon that Garner starts.
People are also, look, I bought Zach Hosking last year for the buy. He was fantastic, but the dude's 25, barely cracked first grade at the Broncos, moved to the moved to the Panthers. I just don't see Zach Hosking being any kind of competition. Garner, I think, look back at 2019, I want to say, when he was at the Tigers. I think he played 80 minutes on the edge. I think he came in at 400K and was, very, very good. This potent left-hand side of Penrith, I like Luke Garner. I like Luke Garner a lot. So, yeah, I don't think there's competition.
I think he's got a bit of talent. I think he's a bigger body. I think it kind of works with their fit, and he's in that Panthers team for 380,000. Yeah. I just reckon if he starts, I'm all over him.
Now, Eli Katoa, I want to have a chat about, because on the one hand, you can make the narrative that he is a guy with so much explosiveness that he could break a game open. You could also argue he's very erratic, and Bellamy could probably hook that. You could also argue that he is so good as an impact player that Bellamy could put someone like a Tarek Sims or Asfa Solomona on the edge to take the sting out of the game and have Katoa come on. I think trials will be a big telling factor for Katoa. But, if anyone can harness all the ability that he's got, it's Craig Bellamy.
Yeah, I mean, at certain periods in his career, I've just been like, he looks a good one. He looks really good, Katoa. He's been inconsistent, and he has been dropped, and he has sort of been in and out of games, But I reckon that Bellier can get the best out of him. I'm going to take a punt. I think if he starts on an edge, I really think that, they might do Nelson maybe for 20 minutes to take the sting out of the game. And Nelson is an absolute scary prospect in the second row. But I think it could be 20 minutes, and then maybe Katoa comes on and plays 50 plus minutes, and I think at that price, he's 360,000. There's value to be had there.
It's a pretty nice looking halfback setup you got there.
Yeah, well, I've done the same as you, Nathan Cleary and Nico Hines. That's probably why I'm cheap and nasty in the front row, But look, I don't really. I mean, if you're not going to get, Tuppeny may not even do what he did last year. We lose IPAP from the front row. There's nothing great in front row. I mean, even Haas is doing an ankle every week. So I'm going cheap in the front row so I can afford things like this. Nathan Cleary, Nico Hines. I'm not going to change that. That's my halves. I don't care what else. I'll take To'o out and go with a hammer instead. I'm not getting rid of those halves. Those are my halves.
I do want to hear your thoughts on paying $680K for a Dylan Brown, who, in my opinion, I think that's his max. I don't think you're going to be making money on him, but you're obviously of the belief that you're not going to lose much. You think that he's going to be pretty consistent around what he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the 5'8" position, last year, for instance, I went Munster because I felt like he was going to be the top scoring 5'8", even though he wasn't there for the first game. I just spent up big because sometimes there's places in your team where you want to make money, and there's places in your team where you want to make points. And I liked Dylan Brown last year. I think he might have just gone over the hump of inconsistency. Well, actually, he's been a consistent scorer because he's got a good base.
Yeah.
I like that base for safety. And if it's not going to be Munster, it's going to be Dylan Brown. I could be tempted into going a Burton with an improved Bulldogs and a goal kicker. That has saved me $100K. And if I'm not going to go, if I wanted to pump maybe a little bit more into that front row or into a Bloor, it's something I could consider. But I want a premium. I want it to be Munster or I want it to be Dylan Brown. I think they're going to be probably 1 and 2. So, yeah, he might lose a couple of dollars here, here and there, but I like his base and consistency. I like Munster's base and consistency. So it's going to be one of them.
Yeah, no, I do like that. I do like the shout out Dylan Brown. I just obviously couldn't make it work with my team setup. But you've also paired him up with Josh Schuster, who we've touched on. I expect big things from him. Big dynamic ball runner. He's prone to a few errors, but I think he's being primed to take over that Kieran Fawn role. Brian Toto, you've already gushed over and explained how much you love him.
Brian.
As a Tigers fan, I love this. I absolutely love it because I really want to see Charlie Staines play fullback for the Tigers. I think everything that we've seen of him playing fullback has looked really good. And I'm assuming you're not picking a 330k Charlie Staines to be sitting on the wing scoring you 12 points a game. You're picking him to be that electric fullback that hopefully he can be.
Yeah, I mean, look, the word on the street is that Dewey's been training at centre, Laurie's been in the halves, and Staines has been training at fullback. Now, there's some players, like when Mano goes to fullback, he goes to another level to what he is at centre. And I really like the look of Charlie Staines in the fullback role. Obviously, he's not going to get that at Penrith, but in the fullback role, I think he looks a little better to me than the Hammer for SuperCoach. He looks more SuperCoach friendly. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with him over the Hammer. I don't even have the Hammer in my team. If he's the fullback for the Tigers, I don't mind having a fullback in my team, and I like the look of him as opposed to someone like Hammer who's just got no base, and you're going to get a lot of single digits out of Hammer.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, look, and Charlie Staines famously, I've banned the shit out of him because he's been awful, but that's on the wing. In the fullback, I think you got to look at Charlie Staines a little differently.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Charlie Staines. I couldn't make it work, but if he does line up there, I'll definitely be moving some funds around. It's just cut off on the screen so far a little bit here, but it's Isaac Thompson as your third centre wing. I love this. I'm a huge Thompson fan. The only reason why I haven't gone him is because Tane Milner's suspended for 2 weeks. So in my mind, we can get a free 2-week look at Thompson. And then if Milne is not named in that third week, then I will bring Thompson in. But he has fantastic base and power. I've labelled him as the cheap Brian To'o. I'm a huge fan of this. And with Milne out, he could really look to solidify that spot. At 294k, I love this.
Yeah, I think he's better than Milne. I think Milne's a bloody liability. He's an absolute liability. He's as mad as Hetherington. Look, I think Thompson's got a lot of talent. Yeah. I think he fits well in that team. I'm going to bank on the fact that he does well in the first couple of weeks and holds the spot. It would be an absolute, I'd have egg on my face if Milne just comes back in. I don't know why they keep giving Milne a run, to be quite honest. I think Isaac Thompson's better. I think
so do I. I guess I'm just planning for that round 3 buy, buying him in when he comes in. You've also got Chance, who we've touched on already.
Yep.
I don't like Remus Smith.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've got Remus in, haven't I? Look, is he going to get the spot there?
Yeah, I think
he was injured. He's going to get it.
I'm going to bring up, so for everyone watching on YouTube, I'm going to change slides in a second. I'm going to bring up my Remus Smith anti-agenda. So like, how much is he? He's like 270k or something.
Yeah.
And he got injured last year. But, before the injury, 33, 20, 30, 20, 44, 26, 32, 59. So we had a really good game against the Tigers in round 1, but it wasn't much else there. Like, he doesn't have that upside that Xavier Coates had, being on the wing. But, look, I can understand why, because he's a Melbourne Storm centre at less than 300k.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen a whole lot to. I
haven't felt good about putting him in there, but I couldn't afford the Hammer. With my money. What about this? I'll change him to Tommy Talau.
Oh, I'm a huge obviously Tigers fan, big Tommy Talau fan.
I love I'm going to have 2 Tigers in my back line.
Oh, that's risky.
He's going to get the spot, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he'll get 1 centre spot. We are very, very dire on centres, and that's why Adam Dewey's being potentially labelled to play the other centre spot. It's going to be Talau and then maybe Naden, but I think Talau's locked in. At 250k, does come off an ACL. We know that, ACL injuries are never fun to come off, but we're not paying 550k for him. It's 250. And the Tigers, they have an okay opening draw, and Talau's got a lot of talent, so I don't mind that.
Yeah, he looks probably more talented to me than Remus. Yeah. So, all right, well, I made that change.
Okay. Live trade. You've also got Paul Alamonte, who we've touched on already. And then you've got Jack Howarth. So 500k a season to do nothing. But Melbourne obviously rate him. It's a duel as well. It's a really handy duel for you to have to flick around if he does jag some minutes. But I think he's in a similar mould to someone like Tavade, or however you pronounce it, in my team. I think he's that last centre wing cheapie that we don't really know who's coming through.
Yeah, I mean, look, Blore and what his role is going to be, Howarth and what his role is going to be, who knows? But look, he is getting paid quite a bit of money. They have lost quite a few troops. I've just got him in there tentatively. There's a couple of bottom prices, isn't there?
Yeah.
But look, if any cheapie is named that's going to start, that's affordable for 200K, that's who I'm going to go. It's just tentative, I guess.
I'm just scrolling through the cheapies at centre wing, and there isn't many that I would say have a decent shot. Like, obviously, you've got Skelton from the Bulldogs, but apart from that, I mean, I'm just scrolling through, and there isn't a whole lot. You've obviously got Howarth, Bailey Hodgson, maybe from the Knights if they don't end up signing Lockie Miller and Gagai doesn't play fullback. He's probably the next best. Zach Seeney, if he can, get the edge, the wing spot over someone like a Hayes Dunster, but there isn't much in centres this year. Like last year, we had a few, so hopefully the trials do open up something for us. But yeah, there isn't a whole lot happening in the centre wing, so it might be one position where we might have one enough and future plan.
Yeah, or you just take one of these ones. It's not going to be sensational, but they're just playing. They've been picked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So obviously we brushed over my fullbacks who were Tedesco and Trbojevic. The reason I brushed over them is because that is the exact same pairing at fullback that you have.
Yep.
What are you thinking with Teddy? Is he a mainstay? Is he not leaving your team regardless?
Yeah, I mean, he is the one that I'm not going to negotiate on with myself. I'm not 100% on Tom Trbojevic, to be honest. He is good value, but Teddy is durable.
Availability is the best ability, and he shows up every week.
Yeah. He's a hog. He takes those runs off the halves and hogs the ball. He's just perfect, Teddy. And I think he's the one that you lock in, and you can go speculative with your second one. If you were going, say, Pappenhausen and Trbojevic, I think you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt. You just tie someone on to Teddy, you can go a little speculative. So it feels a lot safer to me. And I reckon he is the one that you must have if you're going to pick out of him.
Last year, Teddy averaged 79, and that was his worst season in 4 years.
Yeah. And I mean, he is getting older, but I think they've had a couple of wretched years for injuries. And if they can, what are the chances they're going to have 3 in a row of bad injuries? And
Teddy just went through a phase there where like he just looks to be doing too much. And I think he pulls back a little bit. Luke Keary has a second year now off that major injury, so he's probably going to be a little bit more confident. Sam Walker gets a little bit older. So I think Teddy's going to feed off the back of that, and he's also a guy on my side that I just can't move away from regardless. Let's quickly talk Ryan Pappenhausen, because he is ridiculously priced, $830K, coming off an injury that I've got no idea. NRL Physio and his Patreon is doing a very, very lengthy write-up on it, but it just seemed like Ryan Pappenhausen is such an explosive player. Speed is a huge thing for him. It's a weird injury, and we're paying top dollar for him. I always have a rule of I'm not paying top dollar for a player unless I'm 100% confident. It's the reason why I didn't pay $1.2 million. That's still baffling that Turbo was a $1.2 million. The reason why I didn't pay that for Turbo,
Landy's ball. That's why.
But yeah, like $830K for Pappenhausen. The Storm have a fantastic opening start to the season. But it's just weird. Like, is there a guarantee that he goal kicks with the injury? Does Nick Meaney take that? Like, I think there's too many question marks, and I would much rather save $60K and take Latrell despite the poor draw, because Latrell showed last year that he was, matchup proof, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I follow Paps on socials, and he's like, "This is taking me longer to come back from. It's I'm uncomfortable. I'm not as fast, and it's lengthy, and it's a real weird injury. There's just too many risks, I think, to start the year with him at that price. We've all teeted it on the will I go and start the year with Latrell a lot of times, and we've gone, you can't go there. I think after last year you can. Yeah. So if you wanted to go, you're going to go speculative with a Tommy Turbo. They're into the buy in round 2, aren't they?
They are, which is not ideal, but.
And he's currently over in the US seeing Latrell's hamstring.
No, he's going to come back. He's going to have a cyborg hamstring. He's going to be the best. Hey, but let's talk Turbo, because you've mentioned you don't want to take a punt on Pappenhausen. I don't want to take a punt on Pappenhausen, $830K. But I am happy to take a punt on Tommy Turbo at, 504K?
Yeah.
Like
504K for Tom Trbojevic, the bloke who was 1.2. The hamstrings are a huge worry. That's why I'm off Haas. I mean, he's got some dramas in his life, and he is copping ankle injuries every time he seems to run on field in training and stuff. So, look, there is that worry with Tommy Turbo. Savs. He famously keeps buying Turbo first game back of stuff, and he gets injured again. But I think at that price point, he's worth a risk. If he goes over to this US and is making good progress and all the mail is good, how are you going to go with a Tommy Turbo for 500,000?
I think my exit plan, and fingers crossed, because at 5'8", I hate Kalen Ponga, but if he plays fullback, like if he lines up in the fullback jersey round 1, him at 460K or whatever it is, he's also someone that's very, very tempting.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, he's looking good. I've seen a couple of shorts of them in training. He's looking fit.
He's looking jacked.
He's looking jacked as. Yeah, he's looking good. But look, I don't know. Is he up for a resurgence? He's got to be. He's unders definitely for 463,000. I kind of, if he was playing full, but I mean, look, if you and he was dual, like you give him 5'8", that'd be good. But I don't know. I think they're pretty reserved to the mail I'm hearing. He's
playing 5'8". I hate it because in 2019 he played 5'8". I started with him. He was terrible. So I'm not really keen on it. And as much as I love Jackson Hastings, I think Mitchell Pearce is a better player, and I think Pearce was probably better for Ponga SuperCoach stocks, and he still sucked then. So I don't really expect it getting much better. But that's basically both our teams now. We're kind of locked into that for a while until trials happen, or we see that Tavita Pangai Jr. is training the house down, and I'm sure we'll both chuck him in as well. But
training the houses down will get us to change things, I think.
Exactly. It's gonna take a few houses to be trained down for us to really change. Just before we wrap up today, as I mentioned, plug the Discord, and I've pulled a few questions from the Discord today, and I think there's some really, really insightful ones. The first one coming from Dan: what is the best way to approach the buy this year, or are we overthinking it? I do think we're overthinking it a touch. I guess it makes it easy that there's no premium players from the Dragons that we want, because that would make it tricky. Like you said, with Harry Grant last year being out the first round, that threw a spanner into my plans. I didn't start with him, even though I wanted to. But I guess the big concern is Tommy Turbo in round 2, having that buy, but I'm not overly fussed right now.
Yeah, I've had a look at the buys, and I think they've spread them out really nicely. There's some teams that have that you've got to look at early, that it's better to have them in your team. You can't have too many of a certain team, but I really think it's going to be quite manageable. And I agree with you 100% that we probably don't even need enoughs, because there's going to be consistent teams on the buy. I think it's going to make teams pick probably a better variety of teams, players from different teams. But I'm not too concerned about it, because I've looked at the schedule and I think it's manageable. When I first saw that we're going to have this many buys, I was like, they've got to give us extra trades. They've got to extend the positions, make it, 3 halfbacks or, whatever. But I don't think I think initially we're overreacting. I think it's going to be quite manageable. It's going to be more challenging, but I like that.
I just think instead of having, so in previous years, we've probably had 18 viable guys that we're happy to play each week. So like your 4 reserves and 1 maybe extra. I think maybe if we have 19 guys that we're happy to play every week, that's fine, because you're going to have 1 that's going to be out, or maybe 2 if you have from the same team. Then you can have those 2 extras. I wouldn't go more than 3 players from 1 team. I think 3 is probably your max, and that's 3 good ones. So like Pappenhausen, Grant, Munster. I wouldn't have any more Storm players than that. Like, I think you've got to cap it at 3 personally. But I made a post when the buy came out, and just some interesting things for everyone to note. The longest period until the first buy is the Broncos and the Rabbitohs. They both don't have their first buy until round 16. The Cowboys have their first buy in round 15, compared with their magnificent first 8 rounds. And the Eels don't have their first buy until round 14. And for the run home, teams that finish their buys, the Sharks and the Tigers are done in round 18, so no more buys for them, and the Titans finish in round 17. So I guess if you're future planning someone like a Nico Hines or, David Fafita, you don't have to worry about them in the back end of the season missing game time. So I guess that's something to make note. But I do think we're overthinking it a touch. Maybe just have a slightly deeper squad rather than jam-packing.
No more 5 players from the Panthers because you'll be screwed when they have their bye.
Now, Scoop at Fuego. Now, Scoop is, new to SuperCoach. I know this. He's a big fantasy expert, and the reason why I wanted to pull this is because fantasy have a different team set up to SuperCoach. A lot of people are gunning up with 2 keepers in one or multiple positions, fullback, halfback, 5/8, etc. Looking to lock in season keepers and not requiring any trades for the rest of the year, barring injury. Surely that's not a good strategy to get to invest in, locking yourself into limiting positions for cheapies. For example, let's say Sean Johnson does his ACL. That means Luke Metcalf comes in, and if you have someone like a Cleary and a Hines, you probably can't get Metcalf. You can't make money if you're locking yourselves into 2 guns. What are our thoughts on this? So the reason why I wanted to grab this question is because last year I started with Sam Walker and Brad Schneider, and people called me crazy for selling Brad Schneider after 2 weeks when he was a surefire moneymaker. But as you said earlier, points are points. It's all well and good to have a $15 million team value, but if you rank 10,000th, cool. Like, it's not going to get you anything. Points are points.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you've got these 2 guys in the position. Is some of the positions, there's a huge jump from the top 2 down to the next level. In those positions, you might as well just go with the 2 best players. I mean, last year, I know a few people that got Cleary in. He was worth a whole mozza of money, but had a high BE. So people went into a buy or something, and they sold him, got in another player, and then went back to Cleary. So if something does present itself, you can use a trade in there and a trade back if you need to. There's lots of different strategies to play it, but I guarantee you the people who started with Hines and Cleary are never going to regret that they did that.
Yeah. Like, for example, you touch on the drop-off of birth. So Brandon Smith is 417K. What do we think a viable average for him is? 62, 63?
Yeah, I think so. You probably play 60-plus minutes, probably go just under a point a minute.
Okay, so at 417K, we say Brandon Smith's going to average 63. For 581K, so 160K and more, Appy Coruscant averaged 63 last year. And
in the Panthers.
Exactly. So the drop off there is not much when it comes to price. But if we go to halfback, for example, there was 2 clear outliers with Cleary at 80 and Hines at 86. No one. So I'm going to give you the list of the next 4 best halfbacks: Moses, Hughes, Cherry Evans, and Fogarty. No disrespect to those guys, but they're not pushing 80 average.
No.
So the value in other positions, so someone like a Cheese, for example, or someone like a Josh Hodgson who could have a bounce back, like those guys have the ability to match the top end of talent. Not Harry Grant because he's an outlier, but the guys just under him. For example, halfback, because I'm assuming this is what Scoop's referring to, people locking in 2 fullbacks or 2 halfbacks. They're the highest scoring positions. They're the positions that have the most amount of hundreds. You're not going to captain a front row forward. It's not 2019 anymore. You're going to captain a halfback. You're going to captain a fullback, or you're going to captain a centre with a juicy matchup. So I think, as you said, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think points are points.
Yep. I mean, look, there are some positions where you just go, like I'm doing it in front row where I'm going absolutely bargain, because last year the top average was, an IPAP who's gone out of the front row with a 76. But you go down to number 3 on the list and you're down to like Marty Tapau on average, so if you've got someone in there plodding away getting 50, the next best is Payne Haas, who scored 68. He's getting 18 points more. Or Haas is good.
Another way to look at it is, for example, in your team, Jack Hetherington, right? He's starting for you.
Yeah.
You could look at him the exact same way you look at someone that's your last reserve. So you could have a really gun 16 players and you go, oh, look, I'll start Hetherington. Just because he starts doesn't mean he gets more points for being a reserve or a starter. Like, I'm looking at your team and you've got Hetherington in there, and people will go, oh, why is Hetherington starting? I wouldn't look at it like that. I would look at it as Hetherington is a 17th scoring option because you have Brandon Smith, you have Nico Hines, you have Tom Trbojevic. These are all your reserves. Does it make them any less of a better player because they're a reserve in your team? No.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think, like I say to people every year, SuperCoach sometimes leans you towards where savings are meant to be had, and I think in turn it tells you where you don't save, you just spend. And I think that's a good. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams that are just going with those two gun halves.
Yeah, I think that's the way that I'm going. Unless Katoa emerges as like he's going to play and he's going to be locked in, then I'm probably not going to be vying away. I've managed to build an okay side. Like let me pull back up my team, for example. If Hayes Dunster doesn't play, if Tyrell Sun doesn't play, I can just downgrade To'o. Like that's where I'm going to get my money from. I can downgrade Fafita to a Adam Elliott and free up 120k. I'm not going to be moving from Cleary and Hines, I don't think.
Yeah, I'll probably downgrade a To'o if I have to. Yeah. Somewhere in there and go cheaper in the centers. So I'm not going to go in the halves.
Nah, fantastic, mate. I reckon this has been an absolute cracker first episode. We've had some very, very insightful SuperCoach chat for the 2nd of January. Way too early, but Teamless Tuesday is the 28th of February this year, so it's a little bit earlier. The season's actually not that far away when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're SuperCoach nuffies, so we're already
desperados
thinking about building our teams and stuff. But look, there's early mail that comes out. We had a World Cup as well, so the gap between TLT is shorter. So it's exciting, and I think this year we've got an extra team in. We've got a lot of buys. People who are playing SuperCoach are excited for this year, and I think those people that plan early and do their research are going to really benefit this year in this more sort of complex sort of year with all the buys.
Yeah, look, I'm very, very excited. For anyone that is listening to this that is not a SuperCoach Gold subscriber, I get this message 5 times a day. Team Picker opens up normally for you guys around Australia Day. However, I think it's $25 to grab SuperCoach Gold. If you don't want to pay that, there is a plethora of people that do Team Pickers for free. I think Rugby League Fantasy Pro on their website, they have a Team Picker. In my Discord, give another plug. Aman from Aman Talks SuperCoach, he has done my team planner spreadsheet, and that has a Team Picker in it. So there's, if you don't want to pay the $25, fantastic. But if you are listening to this podcast at the 2nd or 3rd of January, I think you're pretty much a SuperCoach desperado.
Yeah, you should get goals. Worth it for 28. You can look at break evens and you can look at what the trade trends are, how many people are vice captaining blah. It's good.
Look, and all those resources are free elsewhere. Like there's some fantastic websites that do it, but it's nice to have it just correlated in one spot. Like if I want to go buy Jerome Hughes in round 5, I can see how many people have brought him in or how many people are captaining him all in the one spot. So I don't get paid. Sangster, if you're listening to this, if you want to give me a referral code, I'll take one.
Give me some free gold, Sangster, you prick.
But no, look, episode 1 is done. We'll be back on Friday. I think we have our first team preview. Don't ask me who it is. I think it's the first 2 teams alphabetically and the last 2 teams. So I know off the top of my head, I think it's maybe the Broncos, the Raiders, the Tigers, and the Warriors, I want to say. I don't know. I'll correlate with Ado.
Up the milk.
And I think I haven't worked out, Ado, I'm not too sure if I'm going to do those team previews as one hour and a half episode, or if we do them into maybe 3 or 4 15-minute ones. Yeah, we'll work that out. But we'll definitely have some content out Friday moving forward. But mate, where can we find you? For anyone not listening on YouTube, they can't see your handle, but people that are listening on audio, where can they grab your stuff?
Yep, so just look up SuperCoach by Adrianasaurus. I know it's stupid that my last name is Asaurus, but it just stuck, unfortunately, and everyone got to know me as that, so that's what I go as. SuperCoach by Adrianasaurus, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You'll find me. I've always got the links there to my potty if because I'm going to still do some solo stuff. Just look it up, you'll find it.
Very, very active in the DMs too, but it's a blessing and a curse having a bigger platform. I do miss the days when I had 500 followers and you could reply to everyone, but you're very, very good at that. You reply to everyone. So
lots of people love the old send me their team and what do I think of it. I like doing that because I don't sleep so well and I get people sending me through their stuff and I'm pretty good at answering generally. So at the moment I can do it. Well, send them through if you need to.
Fantastic. Well, that's going to be episode 1 wrapped up for the Dual Position Podcast, a new look Dual Position Podcast for 2023. Very, very excited. Mate, thank you so much.
An absolute pleasure. Number 1's in the book.
Number 1's all done. All right. Well, we're going to be wrapping up for today. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you on Friday.